Apparently, 100 million people have used generative AI in the last month, and I read a Harvard Business Review about how a company is letting go of 42% of its 130,000 employees by 2030 due to the innovation of generative AI. I think people generally think this thing called AI is cool, but people want to know how this is actually going to affect them. And if you have questions about what generative AI is, how it works, and how it's affecting your job, you are in the right place. Because we are going to answer the 30 most searched questions on generative AI in super simple terms right now. Something that is important to remember is people are pretty hesitant to begin using the different AI tools that are now available. And businesses are just as hesitant. And I'm not gonna tell you that you should change your mind. While I have begun utilizing generative AI in my daily tasks and for work, it's important to remember that in the life cycle of AI, we are here. This leaves the majority of people not knowing what it is or where to start learning. So the first and expected question of the video, what is generative AI? Generative AI is a type of artificial intelligence that is able to create new content such as text, images, or music based off of patterns in existing data. It uses what are called algorithms or patterns in order to generate outputs that mimic real-world conversations. So for example, you could ask a generative AI tool a question on a problem and it would write you back the answer. Same with asking it to write you an email or create a logo for your new business. Now, how does it work? Generative AI works by using different models that are called neural networks in order to analyze large data sets of data and again establish patterns. It then uses these patterns to create new similar content. So, for example, this might be confusing. The English language is filled with patterns, and we would call these patterns spelling and grammar. An example of one of these models or neural networks is what's called a large language model, which leads us to our next question: what is a large language model? A large language model, or an LLM, is a specific type of artificial intelligence specifically designed to generate, understand, and interact with you through language. These models are trained on vast amounts of text data, learning patterns, structures, and nuances of the language that it's analyzing. Once trained, these models can perform a range of different language-based tasks, things like translating languages, summarizing texts, generating coherent and contextually appropriate sentences, answering questions, and more. This begins to answer the question, how does generative AI generate human-like text? LLMs are fed large data sets containing a wide range of different texts. Things like books, websites, journals, could be video transcripts. They learn by predicting particular parts of text, like predicting the most likely word to come next in the sentence that you're saying, which helps them understand grammar, syntax, and even some parts of semantics. This is the case for multiple languages as well. Gen AI handles language translation by training on large bilingual data sets, learning patterns between languages, and generating accurate translations. Models like Google's Transformer are often used for things like this. Now, we need to take a step back. It's important to remember that while I think these conversation type models are the easiest to understand and the easiest to draw examples from, it's important to remember that generative AI tools do much more than just language capabilities. They can create text, they can create images, they can create music, they can create videos, etc. The term AI has been around for years, if not decades now, so how does generative AI differ from traditional AI? Traditional AI focuses on analyzing data and creating predictions based off of that data set, while generative AI creates new data similar to the data set that it's trained on. Traditional AI might classify images, while generative AI can create new images. For example, traditional AI might be able to tell you if a picture contains a cat or not, but while generative AI could create an image of a cat. Now, rightfully so, this begs the question, how does generative AI learn from data? Generative AI learns from datasets by using what are called machine learning algorithms, or again, patterns. For example, training a model on how to create landscape photos. If you feed it thousands of realistic landscape photos, then it's going to understand it should have this much green color in it. It should have this much blue color in it. The green should likely be in this part, or a tree looks like this, and these are commonly found in landscape photos. These are things that the generative AI tool is going to be able to do based off of the data set that you feed it. I think it's important to mention this, and this doesn't even count as a part of one of our 30 questions, which at this point I've lost count, but currently we have answered this many. But when you use a generative AI tool to, say, write you a poem, that interaction that you have with that tool is ultimately going to be used to further train the model. Because generative AI is constantly learning from your interactions, this next statement is super, super important. It is your responsibility to not feed unprotected generative AI tools sensitive information. There are some protected generative AI tools that do not go back and retrain the model, but I think it goes without saying, don't put in your bank statements into chat-gpt. Don't put in your government IED numbers. If you're a business, don't put in sensitive contracts or internal company policy documents into something like Microsoft Copilot on Edge or chat-gpt. All of this is just because you're introducing risks. We don't necessarily know what the future of security looks like. Now, we understand that these models are well protected and the FBI isn't spying on you through chat-gpt, but nonetheless, take the extra step and just be smart, okay? Is that too crazy to ask? I just realized I never introduced myself. I just started talking, but my name is Griffin Lickfeld, the host of Citizen Developer. I'm a Microsoft Dynamics and Power Platform developer and consultant. And on the channel, I love to talk about how I am using generative AI tools to make my life better and save time, particularly at work. If you find that stuff sort of interesting, I'd love to connect with you down in the comments down below. Okay, back to the stuff you care about. How does generative AI handle bias in data? So the short answer is it doesn't.
What?
Generative AI can unintentionally learn and replicate biases present within the training data. i.e., if the training data is biased, so will the output of the generative AI, because the training data is all it knows. It doesn't understand what bias is and that the data that it's been trained on could be potentially biased. There are, however, techniques to handle this. Techniques like data processing, fairness-aware learning algorithms, and regular monitoring of the AI outputs are used. As well as, a little side note, Microsoft does have 6 guiding AI principles that they are trying to implement across their suite. But I'm hoping at this point you're beginning to understand, at least at a high level, what generative AI is and how it kind of works. However, I still think there are some super important questions that we still need to answer in this video. Questions like, what are the general applications of generative AI? How is generative AI going to change my job? And what are the limitations of AI besides bias that we need to be aware of when we're using it? I am probably overdue for answering this question. What are some popular generative AI tools and platforms? Popular generative AI platforms and tools include OpenAI's chat-gpt or Microsoft's Copilot. We have Google's BERT. We have DALL-E for image generation, and even DeepMind's AlphaFold for protein structure prediction. These tools are used across a ton of different industries for different applications. I think it might be fair to say that the most commonly seen tool is OpenAI's chat-gpt. Now, something that's important to know is OpenAI has actually licensed their model into different businesses so that they can have their own generative AI experiences. What does this even mean? Well, let's take a look at Microsoft Copilot. Microsoft Copilot is a language-based generative AI tool that operates through a chat-type interface, much like chat-gpt. Going back to the words like algorithms and large language models, Microsoft did not develop Copilot from scratch. In fact, they just licensed OpenAI's chat-gpt model that they developed. This has allowed these chat-gpt capabilities that you might be familiar with in being able to bring those experiences into the Microsoft suite. Things like PowerPoint, Word, Microsoft Dynamics, Outlook, Teams. And just a clarifying statement, when you're using Copilot, you're not secretly using chat-gpt. They are like separate entities. Think of Copilot just as like a child of the GPT model. Maybe I'm overcomplicating it, but there are some really cool capabilities, especially with Microsoft Copilot, that we are going to cover after this next question. Back to chat-gpt for a second. You may notice that there's different types of model numbers. There's a chat-gpt 3, a GPT 3.5, and a GPT 4. What is GPT 4 and how does it compare to the previous versions? GPT 4 is the 4th generation of OpenAI's pre-trained transformer models. It's more advanced than the previous versions. So GPT 4 can produce more coherent and contextually appropriate responses as opposed to the previous GPT-3 model. With these new tools and better models, it begs the question, what are the general applications of generative AI tools? I think people generally understand that generative AI is cool and exciting, but they want to know how it's actually going to affect them. You want to know how generative AI is going to affect you. What's cool is with the constant advancements, there are constantly new tools coming out about generative AI and more capabilities and ways that you can implement it and save time. But here are some things that you can use generative AI for today. Generative AI has many applications, things like content creation, image synthesis, music composition, drug discovery, and more. It helps automate creative processes and can be used in industries like healthcare, entertainment, manufacturing, and more.
Michael, you have no idea how high I can fly.
Are you ready for a speed round? Here we go. How is generative AI used in the medical field? In medicine, generative AI can assist in drug discovery, create synthetic images for training, and personalize treatment plans by analyzing patient data. It accelerates research and improves diagnostic accuracy. Generative AI can simulate how new drugs are going to interact with human cells and can speed up the development of new medication. Can generative AI generate music or songs? Yes, generative AI can create music and songs. It can generate melodies, harmonies, and even full songs in various styles, helping musicians and composers. How can generative AI be used in education? It can provide personal learning experiences for more in-depth tutoring, more accurate practice problems, and creating custom educational content. AI tutors could generate personal quizzes or feedback based on what that student has learned thus far or what they're particularly struggling with. How can generative AI be used in finance and trading? Generative AI can analyze market data to predict trends, generate trading strategies, and automate trading processes. It helps improve efficiency and decision-making in financial markets. Can generative AI write a novel or screenplay? Yes, generative AI can write large novels or large pieces of text when trained on large pieces of text. It can create large amounts of text that are particularly creative, but experts would say, humans should still be auditing and making sure that these texts are coherent and make sense. I've noticed in my own experience, the longer a output is on a generative AI tool, the more wishy-washy it begins to get. So if you're trying to write a 300-page fictional novel, Copilot or chat-gpt or any other tool is going to struggle, at least at this point in time. How can generative AI be used in video game development? Generative AI can create game assets like characters, landscapes, and storylines in order to speed up the timeline of development. It can also adapt gameplay experiences to the individual players.
I used to be an adventurer like you. Then I took an arrow in the knee.
Can generative AI understand and create art? Generative AI can analyze artistic styles and create new art based off of that style that it's been trained on. While it can mimic and create visually appealing art, it lacks the cultural and emotional context of human artists. AI like DALL-E can create an image based off of a text input like an astronaut riding a horse. How does generative AI create realistic images? Generative AI makes realistic images using things that are called GANs or GANs. This involves two neural networks, again, a word we said at the beginning of this video, but one neural network is in charge of creating the image, also known as the generator, and the other checks if it looks real, the discriminator. The generator then gets better over time by learning its feedback from the discriminator. For example, a GAN or a GAN can create realistic human faces that aren't actually real just by studying large amounts of human faces. How does generative AI help in content creation and marketing? Generative AI can write articles, create social media posts, design infographics, all making content creation faster and more efficient. It helps marketers engage with potential customers better and more effectively. Okay, I am happy that you are still here because we still have maybe the 10 most important questions still to answer. For the next 10 though, I want to talk about something that's a little bit more serious, and that is actually using generative AI tools for work. I think most people, like I've said, are generally excited about using generative AI for personal use, but I understand that when it comes to work, it is a whole different ballgame. After all, this is your livelihood. What if you relied on AI too much and it made a mistake that you were ultimately responsible for? What if your boss found out that you were utilizing Copilot to write customer emails? Would they get mad? Would they think that you're being lazy or taking advantage of the system? Or potentially even scarier, what if utilizing Copilot exposed your company's sensitive information to hackers? These are all perfectly justifiable fears that you can have, but I want to answer these right now. First, how can businesses leverage generative AI? Well, we already talked about how it can be used in marketing efforts to create marketing campaigns, etc. But businesses can utilize generative AI in customer service automation or increased product design, more accurate and faster data analysis. It helps improve efficiency, reduce costs, and create innovative solutions to common business problems. This is where Microsoft Copilot, in my opinion, really becomes a powerful tool. Remember earlier we mentioned that Microsoft Copilot is a repackaged chat-gpt that's coming within the Microsoft suite. What does this mean? This means that you can have a Gen AI tool write a report for you in Microsoft Word. You can have it create a fully fledged, detailed PowerPoint presentation on a topic that otherwise would have taken you 8 hours to make. Copilot for M365 or Copilot for businesses has different data considerations than other tools like ChatGPT, and you can actually connect it to your business data. Now, why would this be valuable? Well, this way members of your team can ask questions like, how many holidays do I get this year? Questions like, what meetings do I have today? Or tell me more information about this open opportunity I have with X account. Copilot brings a lot of really clear business value to businesses that are using the Microsoft suite, and I am personally really excited about it. And it doesn't stop there. How can generative AI improve customer service? Gen AI can enhance customer service by creating chatbots. These bots understand and can respond to customers without the need of a human interaction. These AI-driven bots can handle the simpler, easier questions and free up the more expensive paid human resources for more complex problems and issues to resolve. Have you ever been on a website and there's like a little tiny chat pop-up window that displays? It likely says some generic welcome message and is asking if they can help you in any way. See, those are largely run by generative AI tools that will take your questions, search the company database for the answer, and bring it back to you in a matter of seconds. This saves companies money because they didn't have to pay someone to find that answer for you. And it makes them money because now they have a happier, more satisfied customer. Does this make sense? Does any of this make sense? I hope it makes sense. I'm assuming because you're still here. It makes sense. What about this question? Can generative AI improve cybersecurity? Generative AI can enhance cybersecurity by simulating cyber attacks, identifying vulnerabilities, and generating threat intelligence. It helps developing robust defense mechanisms against potential threats. For example, AI can create some test phishing emails sent to your employees to train them on recognizing potential cybersecurity attacks. And this hints at something that we haven't really talked about, but you're gonna want to hear it. We know that there are practically infinite ways to make generative AI a positive, impacting tool for society. But there's another thing that I don't hear many people mentioning about generative AI. Its ability to gather information so that we can draw more accurate conclusions. What do I mean? I mean generative AI's ability to conduct experiments and then create an analysis on the outputs. Marketers could use generative AI to understand which marketing campaign will drive more traffic. Sales teams can use AI to determine which email header would be better and convert to more leads. Gen AI could tell you the fastest way to get from your home to the grocery store and back. Or it could look at your grocery list and provide some healthier and cheaper alternatives. Now, if all of this sounds scary, you are probably here. And that's okay. You are like most people. Most people hearing the craziness about AI all have the same question. What are the risks of relying on generative AI? There are three main things to talk about when answering this question. One, the potential for generating incorrect or biased content. As we talked about before, models are only as good as their training data, and like most things, if you put bad in, you'll get bad out. Number two is the over-reliance on generative AI tools and their outputs on things that particularly require human judgment. Especially in the current state with a lot of these generative AI tools, a human touch can sometimes just plainly be better. I can already hear the people that are older than me watching this saying, yeah, this email needs a super important human touch or else we're gonna lose the deal. While I'm sure that you're right, I would argue that writing emails is not what I meant by that statement. I was meaning like doctors reviewing AI suggested prescriptions, lawyers reviewing the law itself as opposed to trusting what an AI tool told them that the law was. Entrepreneurs doing true market research as opposed to asking chat-gpt what business they should start this year. To the person who swears that every email you send cannot be replicated by AI, let me tell you something. If you spend just a couple minutes learning about these tools and how to write effective prompts, 95% of people would not know the difference between your emails and an AI generated email. But you don't have to believe me. You can happily spend your time writing emails. Bro. Okay, back to relying on AI. And third, there are a ton of ethical concerns regarding the misuse of generative AI content. What are the ethical concerns surrounding generative AI? Well, I'm glad you asked. If you can't tell, I'm completely running out of transitions. Ethical concerns include the potential to create fake news, deepfakes, and other misleading content. Like anything, there are plenty of bad people out there in the world that are able to take something that's generally good and use it in a poor way. And you need to be aware that these deepfakes are starting to exist. What are deepfakes? Deepfakes are synthetic media that take one person's image and likeness and replaces it with another person's image and likeness using generative AI tools. So people can create realistic images or videos with the intent to be misleading or harmful. For example, a deepfake video can make it appear as though a celebrity is endorsing a product that they never used. Or even scarier, someone could impersonate a loved one of yours and be in an emergency and need money. It would be a shame to not mention this. Make sure that your family and especially your parents or your grandparents are aware that these things exist. The best method that I have heard on if you are questioning the validity of something or somebody that you know that is contacting you is to ask them a personal question that only you two would know. This could be a question like a childhood memory that you have with them, where you were the last time you saw this person in person, or ask them an inside joke that only you two know. For the sake of time, I want to continue to move through the rest of these few remaining questions, but nonetheless, stay safe. Question 27. What are the environmental impacts of generative AI? Generative AI requires substantial computational power, leading to high energy consumption and carbon emissions. Efforts are being made to develop more energy efficient algorithms and begin having data centers utilize more renewable sources of energy. I think it's fair to say that the improvements in efficiency generative AI could bring could have positive impacts on the environment, but nonetheless, developing AI is environmentally expensive. How does generative AI impact job markets? I think it is inevitable that the job market is going to be impacted in some way, shape, or form. Generative AI can automate countless tasks that ultimately, at this point in time, may be something that's done by a human being, potentially reducing the need for human labor in certain roles. I actually have an entire video on this exact topic on the channel that you can click on here, and if you fear that generative AI could replace your job, then I think you're gonna like that video. Conversely, AI can create new jobs in things like AI development and AI output oversight. What are the most significant challenges in developing generative AI? Well, the development of these models takes a lot of time, energy, and effort. If you're training a language model, you need to provide thousands and thousands and thousands of data points for it to learn from. If it's an image-based model, you need to provide thousands and okay, I think you get it. Other challenges include ensuring ethical use, handling bias, managing computational resource requirements, and improving the accuracy and reliability of the generated content. Additionally, addressing public concerns is an important issue and role as well. Now, the final question of the video, question 30, what is the future of generative AI? I think the answer to this question is largely unknown, but the best guess is that the generative AI tools available are continuously going to become more sophisticated, more reliable, more accurate, and more realistic. Advances will likely include improvements to everything that we've possibly talked about in this video, as well as expanding on the different types of applications in the different types of industries available. If you're interested in seeing how generative AI is going to affect your job and if it can replace you, you are going to want to check out this video here on the channel. Thank you to you for sticking to the end of the video. My name is Griffin Lickfeld, the host of Citizen Developer. If you liked it, consider telling YouTube and subscribing for more AI related content. And I'm excited to connect with you guys in the next one.